Okay, take one.
Hello, welcome to the Edmunds CarCast podcast. I'm Matt, the moderator, Deandra, here with Alistair Weaver. Let's see, we've got a handful of things we want to talk about on the show today. And then we also have a guest that's putting on an event called the Bridge in Hampton. And it's much like what we think is the quail of the East Coast. So we're going to get into that as well. Before we get started, a word from our friends at Bet Online. They continue to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season around the corner, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB to UFC to tennis and NFL futures, Bet Online remains your number one choice for all your sports wagering info. And of course, in between the games, you can head on over to the Bet Online Casino for other top Vegas style games, including poker and their live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry leading VIP program and level up with bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet Online, the game starts here. Last week we were kind of ending the show and just starting to introduce the newest version of the Nissan Leaf, and I just wanted to touch on that for a second because the Leaf started off as, I don't know, just kind of like a really nice enclosed golf cart. It had about 70 or 75 miles of range. By the way, and it wasn't good like highway range because my bad experience with the Leaf was I got one as a press car. I was driving it, I was charging. There was no chargers around. Like really, when I got the first Leaf, like when the Volt came out, and I was just trying to get from here to a bit south, like kind of where you are, Manhattan Beach area and stuff, and going back. And then it wasn't making it. I stopped at a Nissan dealer. We tried to charge it. It was slow. It wasn't working. I got back on the road and it just stopped. And it was the one time I had to like call the press fleet people and go, you need to pick up your car.
It's it's
It's
poor
on the
poor Leaf. I
405.
mean, the original Leaf was really innovative. You'd come out of that generation where it'd been all about the Prius and Cameron Diaz, driving a Prius to a private jet and all that sort of stuff. And then suddenly you had the Leaf, which was fully electric. And even today, like you pick up an old Leaf for no money. And actually, if you just want a car for like knocking around a city or something, if you're literally going to use it as a commuting car, they still make a lot of sense. But this is the new one. It's a bit odd looking. I think this is the problem with so many of these EVs, and Mercedes, I think, have made this mistake with the EQE and EQS as well, is that like you go for aero and it's all about we're going to make something really aerodynamic and give it good range and everything else. But when you do that, you end up with something that looks a bit kind of blobby, if that's the technical term, and the
Yeah.
Leaf is a bit challenging to look at. It'll be interesting to see whether it's better. A lot of these modern cars, when they've got a lot of design, they look better in real life, and I haven't seen it in real life. We're just looking at the pictures. It's it's now pitching into a much more competitive market. If you think it's going to be really up against the Chevy Equinox EV,
Hmm.
probably Tesla Model 3 as well. It's that kind of sedan. Is it a sedan? Is it a crossover? Is it an SUV? It's that kind of, they all merge into one really. But the other thing that I think that's really tough about these cars is, yeah, they might start off in the 30s and everybody says, okay, that's a great value. But the lease deals on EVs at the moment are so competitive that you can get an Ionic 5 for a couple of $100 a month or a
Yeah.
Honda Prologue for a couple of $100 a month. Why would you get a Leaf? And I think this is everybody at the moment, and I think the success or failure of this car, everybody at the moment is just waiting to see what happens with the EV legislation. Like, will the tax credits stay? Will they go? If
Hmm.
they're going to go, is that at the end of the year? Is there a different timeline? And then if they do go, are they going to go for like everybody? Or there's this talk of, well, if you haven't sold 200,000, then maybe you hang on to it. So it's a right mess. And if there are no tax credits, this is I think is going to be a tough pitch. But I hope it succeeds. I mean, it seems like a very sensible evolution of a Leaf. It's just, there's a lot more competition now.
Nissan needs to be competitive in this space. In the against the Blazer and what Hyundai is doing with like Ionic 5, they're doing well in the space. Compared to each other. Like I'm not comparing it to the gas vehicles. I'm comparing it to the EV world. I
But
think
Nissan has
Nissan
the
needs to
Aria,
play.
and they've struggled with that vehicle. I mean,
Yeah,
the
they
Aria
did.
is the kind of Blazer rival, and the Leaf is going to sit underneath that. and they struggle to shift areas, or at least without putting significant money behind it. But
Yeah.
I think where this probably scores is, let's face it, most household in America are multi vehicle, multi car, and this probably makes a lot of sense as a second car. So it's not your family road trip car. It's your, I'm going to commute in this car. I'm going to go shopping in this car. I'm going to pick the kids up in this car. And then it probably makes a ton of sense.
Like you said, once you get into it, if it's small enough for city driving, especially in LA, but also roomy enough on the inside to carry gear, carry kids, like you said, making those runs to the games, sports for the kids or Whole Foods or whatever, then yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, you're not doing the big road trip in it. It's not going to be
No, and that's fine. I think once you can get the price point down into like the low 30s or whatever, then it starts to make more sense as that additional vehicle. And I'm not
yeah.
talking about super wealthy people. I'm talking about, it becomes that's part of the family solution. And I think that's probably a strong market for it. But the other car I drove this week, which actually, again, I mean, this is where it gets tricky, right? From an EV perspective, if you take the tax credits away, because this week I spent some time in the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is
Okay.
basically the same price. We think the Leaf, there's no price yet, but we expect the Leaf to cost like low 30s, probably to mid 40s by the time you got it fully spec'd. And I spent some time this week in the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is their Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4 rival, brand new, similar price range, sort of 30 to 40-ish.
Yeah, and to be clear, that's a gas engine
It's a
vehicle.
gas
It's
engine,
not a
2-liter turbo, and I came away really quite impressed by it. More than,
okay.
we're still crunching all the numbers, and there's the updated CRV, there's a new RAV4 on the way. But I actually drove the top spec one, which is 40 grand. You got you got massage seats, you've got, mood lighting, there's big panoramic roof, big touchscreen display, lots of gadgetry, and also tons and tons of space. I mean, I'm 6'4", and I could comfortably sit behind myself. And I was talking to my wife, and we got this Genesis GV60, and I was like, this actually costs us a lot of money for a car that we don't do many miles in. Like, how about this? Why don't we just buy one of these, 35 grand, keep it a long time.
Yeah.
It's not going to cost much money to run. And yeah, the quality, the plastics and stuff, yeah, it's kind of not, it's not Audi. But the rest of it, I thought this is a nice piece of kit. It's got a bit of character about it. It's a bit more interesting than a CRV. So it's not something I don't think the Tiguan is something that naturally features on people's radar. But nice little car.
I'm trying to think of the last one that I drove or some of the Volkswagens just in general. There was just something about the Volkswagens that they just kind of felt like I don't know, just like maybe not enough sound deadener, just felt like a little lightweight, just not quite as solid. Certainly a big difference between that and the Audi, but just like the thump of the door and the road noise and just felt like a little like there's just something going on where like they're missing some sound deadening materials
I think
across
that's
the way.
true. I think that's fair. And I think if you drive the Tiguan, like it's the 2-liter turbo 4 that's been in like a billion Volkswagens. And
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds a little raucous, and you like the plastics, the way the door's shut. But then it's 35 grand.
right.
And, you're not 60 grand. And so, and, it's difficult because sometimes you feel like they almost engineer in cheapness. I mean, they do it literally in that they've got to
Yeah,
keep the price down. But then there's also the brand thing that, I know Genesis and Hyundai are having this problem at the moment, talking to a few people at Genesis. Like, Hyundai interiors have got so good and the technology's got so good that it's like, what the hell do we do with Genesis? Do we like, you're just talking about slightly better leather, slightly better, like,
yeah.
like, oh, we now have Bowers and, we now have Bang& Olufsen Hi-Fi instead of Bose. But like, everybody's like, is that really that much a bigger deal? So Volkswagen, I think he's trying, especially in America, he's trying to do that pitch. We're not Audi. We're going to be cheaper. You're going to have to compromise on plastics and stuff, but you're not really compromising on technology because it does all the same gadgets that
Yeah.
the Audi has. It's just, as you say, the doors don't shut with quite the same noise. the plastics don't feel quite as good. But then some of the Audi plastics,
But
aren't great.
like you were saying, as the family hauler, the daily family hauler, that interior is probably a little bit easier to clean, to wipe down the
Yeah,
plastics. You can use harsher, chemicals, I guess, if like you could spray it down with more
not
aggressive
aniline
cleaners.
leather, sir, is it? It's not,
Yeah, right. That kind of stuff. But you're right. It's also like when you're trying to reduce the cost of a car, you kind of have to be careful of where you cut those costs. Like we were talking about before, when you just get to the plastic steering wheel, it's like it's the most high touch piece. It's there. It's in front of your sight and in your grip of your hands every single time you're in that car. So maybe make that decent and then I get where we go. Well, maybe the front seats are a leatherette and the rear seats are something a little more vinylish, like or the backs of the seats, like maybe that's where you're cutting a little bit corners or, there's something kind of plain for a mat in the trunk, like just some carpet. Like those things are just that aren't in front of you and you're touching and looking at every single time.
I also think you're right about that, like beat it up car. That's why I quite like Broncos and Jeeps and stuff. Because we were talking on last week's show about having the Range Rover Sport SV, and I took the kids away we went away for a night over the weekend, and I said, Mike, they can't eat in this car. I was, what do you mean? Like they've got a 2 hour journey. I was like, nope, we're not having a cookie in this car because like I don't want it getting like compressed. It's like ventilated seats. It was like the semi-aniline leather. I was like, they're not compressing like bits of biscuit and kids stuff into the seats because
Into
like
the perforations of
this
the
is not my
seats.
seat. This is not like I'm going to take it back. Yeah, we'll clean it before it goes back to Range Rover, but I'm not. You know, kids, if they want to eat, we're going to stop. We're going to pull over and we're going to eat by the roadside. And then, but you're right. Like with the Touran, it's like, yep, okay. Basically, they're kind
Yeah.
of like sort of leather, but not really leather.
You know,
So
the
off you go.
when you do the press car like that and you want to take the nice like you got to just go into your house and just grab a sheet or something off the bed and wrap it around the rear seats and
All
tuck
around
it
the
in
children.
like around the children and just like you just got to put sheets and stuff. It'll be like uh you gotta have to kind of like Pulp Fiction when they clean that car after shooting that guy, and they tucked all the blankets all in the seats. Like you have to just do that with towels. I do it with the dogs too. Like I want to bring the dogs with me, right? So I cover the center console with something, and I put some stuff in the back seat, put some towels down, blankets down, something like that.
I called it a Touran. I realized just call it a Touran. One thing that does drive me nuts with Volkswagen at the moment is like I can't remember what all of them are called. So it's the Tiguan is the
Yeah,
small SUV. Then you got the Touran. I think was like the Touran was more like a people carrier. The Touareg, Touareg. It's like
a
somebody
Touareg.
just needs to like like yeah,
Yeah.
call them
Okay.
something. Anyway, it's a good car.
But you like it.
Very smart. I did. I was actually, like we're going to talk about something a bit fancier in a moment, which I was almost like this week. I've driven Volkswagen Touareg. No, yes, Volkswagen Tiguan. Tiguan.
Big one.
See, there you go. Volkswagen Tiguan. Surprised how much I liked it. Porsche 911 Carrera 4 GTS. That's the hybrid one. Surprised how comparatively underwhelmed I was. And
And I
you have
just
weeks like
saw
this
one on the
sometimes.
street. I was just like, "Oh, there's the new hybrid," and it said T hybrid on the side.
Yeah, on
And
the door. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
maybe
maybe
it
it
was
was
me.
you.
Was it red? Maybe it was me.
No, actually, no. It was like the chalk color.
Okay. It
Yeah,
was. So I drove it. Just spent like a couple of days in it, and don't get me wrong, it's a great car. Like the 911 period is a great car. Goes like hell, handles beautifully, great quality. You know, but I was expecting something more from the GTS. I mean, normally the GTS is the sweet spot of the range. And I got into it and I was like, and this is the hybrid. I was super interested in the technology. We talked about it before on the show. I mean, the numbers off the test track are incredible. But at the end of the day, it is just a faster version of a 911. You're not really conscious of it being a hybrid, which many people say that's a good thing.
yeah.
And it is to a point. But like the 911 doesn't necessarily need, to my mind, like go faster. So you've got the Carrera, which is plenty fast enough. Then you've got the Carreras. Now you've got the GTS, which is the hybrid. and it's kind of a lot stiffer to the point where I was actually playing with the damper settings, thinking I got it on the Sport or Sport Plus, and I hadn't.
Okay.
So it's more towards what a GT3 used to be. So it's more extreme. The low speed ride quality is noticeably stiffer than it is in a standard Carrera. And yes, it's faster, but it doesn't sound that, it sounds great when you're really on it. But on the road, it's quite hard to be really on it because it's so damn fast. And like day to day, it's not like low revs and stuff. It doesn't sound that amazing. And because this is a single turbo, you get a lot of wastegate. So you're going along, you're going, psh, 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 psh. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And then I remembered that this has got one single big turbo, not two little turbos. So you literally go, oh, it's like being back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's like a bad car. It's far from that. I just kind of more and more, I just think like the sweet spot is just buy a Carrera, or buy it if you want the manual, which I certainly would buy. Just buy a Carrera T. I mean, the car I drove was like 206 grand.
Okay.
You know, a nicely spec
They're
Carrera
really getting
T
up there
is like
now.
150. Like save yourself 50, 60 grand Carrera T, or just a standard Carrera. I don't need. This is just like a go faster 911, and frankly, on the road, you don't need to go faster than a Carrera.
Yeah.
I thought
Okay.
I was going to be absolutely blown away by it, and I was a bit like, yeah, it's great, but I don't necessarily see the
Yeah,
point
I mean,
of it.
it's a little disappointing because the GTS has always really been the sweet stuff, the sweet
Yeah,
spot. Like you just get a lot of the options kind of baked in. You get some unique pieces, some of the GTS branding and a few features like, like you can get the center lock wheels that you'd only get on the Turbo S, like that kind of thing, so yeah, I was kind of expecting a little more out of it as well.
I think it's because they've made the GT3 so expensive now and a bit otherworldly that the GTS is almost plugging that gap. So it's like a everyday GT3, but it's quite. I was surprised how stiff it was. It's like, I don't. The joy of a 911 is it's always been pretty comfortable as an everyday car. This was. I was surprised how extreme it is. And as I say, unless you're really on it, it doesn't sound that great. And
Yeah.
that's always been the 911 thing. As an
All
owner of
right.
an air-cooled car, which sounds a hell of a lot better.
Well, when do you guys get it to the test track and get the numbers out of it?
Oh, we've had the numbers, and I haven't got them to hand. I really should have done. We talked about. I think was it 2 shows ago, but it was like under 3 or something to say. It was like
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
fast.
that's right. It was fast. It was
Yeah,
fast 0 to 60. All right, well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break and then we'll bring in our guest and we'll wrap it up with them.
sounds good.
Okay, we're back and we have our guest Jeff Einhorn from the Bridge and Ariel as well, who's part of the team over there. I wanted to, as we're leading up to, well, Alistair's leading up to going to Goodwood pretty soon, and you're right, like all of the invitations and things are coming in for Monterey Car Week, but that's why we wanted to reach out to you guys and talk to you guys about the Bridge, the event that you guys do. This is in the Hamptons. This is in New York. Tell us a little bit about that event and how you guys got started there.
Yeah, so the Bridge takes place in the Hamptons. This is our ninth year now. We actually have been running for 10 years, but our ninth edition, because like everybody else, we took the COVID year off.
Yeah.
But we run at the former Bridgehampton race circuit. Now it's a very high-end golf club, but what's really notable about it is that there are tons of elements from the original track there. There's the front straight, the Chevron Bridge, there are timing towers everywhere, so you have this incredible property. It's actually the largest single owner property in the Hamptons. And so you have this incredible property high up on the top of a hill looking out of the water. And instead of having golf for 1 day or 3 days, every year in September, we bring the cars back to the track and we have what we like to call the world's best garden party. It's much more of a lifestyle style of event. So if you had been to the Quail maybe 12 years ago before it got really, really crowded, when it was just a time to kind of catch up and see your friends and see what's new and sit back and enjoy with them. I mean, that's the Bridge. It's the event that everyone wants to bring their partner to. And because you can only bring one guest if you're showing a car, it's the one people fight to bring to get to come along, whether it's your car friend or your spouse.
And
Yeah.
who's your typical audience, Jake? It is kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, these sort of events are popping up all over the world. Matt mentioned I'm off to Goodwood, which itself, I mean, I remember going 20 plus years ago, and it started in a similar vein, like a little garden party for Lord March and his friends, all of whom had nice cars and drove them up the driveway. And today it's become this huge sort of commercial auto show, really. It's still fun, it's still interesting to go to, but it is a very different proposition. It's kind of interesting to me as, these things pop up around the world that it's kind of like, how do you keep it being this sort of like, clubby atmosphere where it becomes a fun day out and you don't get it too big and commercial? And, how do you keep a lid on it all?
I mean, the bridge has gotten, it's been incredibly successful. And so to keep that lid on it is definitely something you have to keep your eye on the entire time. But we cap the number of people at 3,000. And on top of that, it's an invite only affair. And so, well, if you're bringing a car, then you can bring your guest. Aside from that, it's really up to myself, Shameen Abbas, and Bob Rubin, my two partners, as to who's coming that day to enjoy. So, we really do still get to be the party planners. We still get to decide, who's coming to our party. And it's a slightly different atmosphere than you'd have if it was just open to the public, like you now have at Goodwood, like you have at Quail, like you have at Pebble Beach. So when people apply with cars, I'm not just considering the car. I mean, I am, but I'm also considering whether or not this is the type of person you'd want to have at your party, frankly.
Yeah. And then what is...
So that's Matt and I don't get an invite then, probably. So.
we're not on that list. We're
See how this goes.
Yeah. What does the lay of the land look like? Because you say similar to the Quail. The Quail's got their curated food and beverage, surrounding it. And then, there's a bunch of cars sort of in the infield, but also it's curated, and it's often like one or two or three themes. There's a couple of the manufacturer booths and stuff that you see, and there's some, it could be a Gordon Murray or a Hennessy or whatever, that those manufacturer booths kind of surround it. But then it could be, Japanese race cars. It could be Trans Am. It could be, a featured mark, Ferrari from a certain era. How do you guys curate who's going to be at your events? Does it change from year to year? And then do you do similar thing with the food and beverage? Like what does the bridge look like?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, just to go back, just by numbers. So the bridge is about 3,000 people and 350 cars every year. So if you compare that to the Quail, which I think last year ran about 200 cars and 7,000 or 8,000 people, it's skewed much more in favor of, to gently say, a good time and great photos for everybody. There's no ropes and stanchions, which is something you can really do when you have an invite-only affair and generally who's going to be at your party that day. We take over about 3 miles of walking, so we're much more spread out than the Quail. And, well, the Quail has the tents where you can sit down, and the Peninsula will show off some of its great, entrees and whatnot from some of their different hotels around the world, which I think is really cool. Instead, what we do is we put out about 15 or 20 food stations with a wine or drink pairing along the way. So you take this 3.5 mile walk, you stop and you see the cars, you have a bite, you have a drink, you go to the next thing. And instead of having just one single caterer like the Peninsula, and I'm excited because my tasting is actually on Sunday, I go out to what's called Smorgasburg, which in New York is kind of like the biggest food market. And they work with 70 or 80 hot restaurants to do catering. And we pick out what we think are the 10 or 15 best restaurants to cater for us every year. And invariably, it involves lobster rolls and I should say, a 20-foot ice oyster bar. And I can see you guys salivating. And incredible barbecue. And the advice that we got, from the beginning was go high and go low. So if it's going to be unhealthy, make it wildly unhealthy, and if it's going to be really healthy, then, throw ceviche at them. And we've done both. We've been really successful in kind of having that atmosphere where, remember, it's a garden party. It's a party. So you're walking around, you're seeing the cars. I don't necessarily want you to sit down and eat. I want you to have a bite and keep talking, which is, frankly, the same reason why I don't put placards with our cars. I don't want people to stoop over and, try to get down and take a picture of the placard so they can read it later, or try reading it, then I want folks to interact with themselves. So to answer your questions about how we choose cars, I mean, there's obviously a number of different things that go through my head when we're picking them, and I'm kind of in charge of the picking of cars and curating the exhibition. But usually it's so that I can have a visual depiction, tell visual stories, things that people will understand, whether they're diehard enthusiasts or just kind of casual appreciators of cars. So you really have this, you tell these vignettes, you have little stories that you tell through these visual depictions, and you'll see, some of the nerds will see, oh my God, like every single one of these cars was designed by Giugiaro, and you have, some like cheap, weird Fiat, with, what's a good Giugiaro car?
A Panda. Fiat Panda was the Giugiaro.
Okay. So we've done this. Or you can have
Fiat Panda
beautiful
4x4. I'm sorry. Fiat Panda 4x4 is the ultimate skiing car in Europe. Don't know a Fiat Panda 4x4. The original one. Not that they've kind of rehashed it a few times, but that original beautiful design, Ital design, fantastic. Anyway, sorry.
We had a friend who actually got Missoni fabric and redid the interior of one with all these wild Missoni colors. And we put it out on the bridge with a Campari umbrella next to it, some lawn chairs in one of the sand traps. And people go crazy for that kind of thing. I mean, it's supposed to be fun. So again, it's all about telling stories and what we see, throughout the year. I get really tired of, we're in the middle of September, and I get tired after going to all these shows, seeing the 50th anniversary of X, and, this is the 25th anniversary that something won Le Mans, and so we're going to have all these cars. I think it's wonderful that people can put that together and celebrate the history. But by the time you get after Pebble, I don't want to see them anymore. I'm much more interested in things that are a little bit more unique, a little more interesting. I mean, I'll tell you that we started putting cars in sand traps in 2016. I started with Myers-Manning sand buggies, the original ones. And I thought it was funny. And at the time, no one was doing this. But we just thought it was so weird. And the beauty for us at the bridge is always that there's 3 people in charge. That's it. There's no committees. It's just us. And so if one of us decides that we're going to do something, you pretty much just can run with it and do it. I mean, for the same reason why our second year we had these, they must have been 70-foot helium balloons with our logo on them that were, 200 feet in the air. And we did that. And we didn't know at the time that helium is wildly expensive, and had spent like $20,000 on helium to get them up there. But the damage was already done. But the idea is you can have these crazy ideas. And when things run without these huge committees, you can actually push them through and make it happen. And sometimes it makes for something cool. Sometimes, it's something that you decide not to do again because it's too expensive.
At the risk of shameless name dropping, I remember a few years ago chatting to Charles March, Lord March. Actually, he's now Duke of Richmond now, isn't he?
He was. He got promoted at some point.
He got promoted, Duke of Richmond, and I remember him like making the argument that this as Goodwood was growing, and saying that that buying a classic car of a certain, and you don't have to spend the earth, but you have to have the right car, gives you an access to do something that you cannot by traditional means. So in other words, if you have the right car, you can run it up the Goodwood Hill, you can take part in the rally stage, or you can race it at the revival. And I thought it was a really interesting way of looking at it, because it's not necessarily about just getting the checkbook out. It's about having something which contributes to an event or an occasion, and it becomes this passport to a lifestyle that you otherwise couldn't have. And I never really kind of looked at it that way, and I thought it was really interesting.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I get countless submissions from folks with, brand new cars, and, those spots are generally full very quickly. I mean, I like to show everything at the bridge, everything that I like, frankly. So we have, everything really from 1950s race cars up till present day supercars. But it's so easy for people to write that check for the new present day supercar that those, like I said, those spots fill up really quick. And it's hard to be like a real car enthusiast with vintage cars, because it's not just writing the check. It's figuring out where the heck you're going to have this thing serviced. And now we all know it's not just having it serviced. Then your mechanic comes to you and says, you got to help me find these parts. We're going to do this together. We work together now.
And they're really quite hard work.
And if you're that enthusiast, then you're a little bit more worthy, right? I think so.
Yeah.
I think you really are, because you've shown that you're really into it. You can walk the walk.
And the event is coming up in September.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've been working on it for some time. What is going to be there? Do you have some thoughts, some standout cars that you're already curating that you think are going to be kind of special?
I don't like to give up too many of my secrets, but what I will say is that, as I said, we really like to have these visual depictions. And so in the years past, I've turned to color to keep things interesting for everybody to love. So I think it must have been 2021. I had a collection of 8 or 9 mint green Porsche 911s and a 928. I think we had a 944 as well, but they were all factory mint green cars, and they were kind of rolling throughout the hills. And so, I hope you guys can make it to the bridge this year, because you will certainly see some fabulous color combinations. I mean, last year I think it was like 60 vintage cars, and not just Ferrari or Porsche, but across the gamut. And they were all blue. They were all different shades of blue, starting from light to dark, and it looked like a wave was crashing onto the golf course. And it's just, to be able to have fun like that, that's what you're going to see when you guys come to the bridge. That and an incredible beach party this year, because I have spent months picking out the perfect band. We have 2 bands that operate at the bridge. We have a very elegant, classy side over by the clubhouse where a lot of our more formal sponsors reside. And then we have Bridge Beach. And Bridge Beach is it's like 50 feet wide. It's a waste bunker that we had repurposed into just a sandbar, basically. It's 50 feet wide and maybe 300 feet long. And we have 4x4s and Porsche SUVs and 911 Dakars. We've had real Rothman race cars back there as well. And that's the band that I get to pick.
Okay.
So basically, you start in the civilized area, then as the day goes on, you end up in the sandpit. Is that the general run of things?
With no shoes and just kind of hanging out with. I think last year we had a reggae band there.
Alistair and I talked quite a bit about, certainly in recent years, about the popularity of auto shows and debuting cars has declined quite a bit, and then those car manufacturers have taken advantage of other events to launch new cars, not just high-end supercars, but launching things at Monterey Car Week or even on the cover of Forza Motorsport at an event like a new Bugatti becomes, or the Senna launches on the cover of a video game. Goodwood is another good example of that. The Quail's a good example of that. But not just new cars. Builders often work on restoring a vehicle and find the right venue to debut that car for the first time. It could be Pebble Beach. In the aftermarket, it could be the SEMA show. So much gets debuted there. Do you guys have a bit of that? You must have restorers or collectors that are debuting cars with you, but do you work with any manufacturers as well? Are they debuting something new with you guys?
We do. We've debuted a whole host of cars, and I don't want to, take over from the PR side of the team, who I'm sure have a pre-prepared list of like 75 cars that have debuted with us. But to go back to your first point about, the change in the atmosphere in the auto world, I mean, the days of the auto salon, they're dead. I mean, the last thing we have left of it is basically Paris Retromobile, which is just vintage now. I mean, it always was vintage, but, the cars aren't debuted like they used to be. And we had the Lamborghini Miura, right? It's debuted without a body. It's just a chassis at the French salon, the Paris salon, I think, where it was debuted. I'm sure that someone's going to correct me here, and I'm 100% wrong. But that's how these things were debuted. Everything's debuted on the internet, basically. The types of cars that used to just come out at an auto salon, unless they bring them out to Quail, to Goodwood, to Pebble, and that's where they debut them. But even then, things have leaked on the internet, and so how many more eyeballs can these manufacturers get? They're either requiring people to come in person, or they're having them come, just to their computer. It's going to be much easier to have them come to their computer. And I think that everyone's seen that. Certainly more cost effective as well. For cars, we've had new cars that we have done. We've debuted at the bridge. We've done a lot of East Coast debuts as well at the bridge. But I as the person who's putting together and curating the actual exhibition, I love it when we get to bring new things out. We had the Bertone Ferrari Dino 246 prototype that everyone thought was lost for a zillion years. We debuted that back at the bridge 2 years ago. And it's those types of cars that I'm always so happy to bring back in, that have been tucked away for a zillion years. And, a lost Tucker or a 300 SL that's never been painted, or that's only been owned by one family. That type of stuff is much more interesting, I think, from the curatorial side of things.
And the event, it's not a competition in any sense. There's no awards or anything like that. You said there was no placards. So if you want to know what the car is, if you don't recognize it, you're encouraging people to ask, right? Like, oh, is this your car? Tell me about it. So that we do the stickers on the car, and so you'll be able to get some information on the make, model, year, just on the car itself. But I don't like anything that's going to disturb a photograph, to be honest. So, well, you can have a QR code. There's really nothing else. I don't want placards in front of everything. It gets messy, to be honest. We don't judge. And the reason we don't judge is because when we put together the bridge, we started from a blank slate. And when you start with a blank slate, you get to throw out all the stuff you don't like. And as a kid growing up in car culture and going to, judged events, I hated getting up early. So the bridge starts at 2. I hated, bringing like these lawn chairs and you sit behind the lawn chair all day. That is not allowed. That is not this type of event whatsoever. I hated, being relegated to a hot dog stand. I just couldn't handle that. And so the bridge is a food and wine event. All of these things. And what I hated most was that nervous feeling in the pit of your stomach when you see the guys with the hats and clipboards walking around and they're coming to your car next. I hated that. You know what it doesn't make? It doesn't make a very good environment for a party. It's great for the hobby. It's great for, selling car parts. It's great for keeping this alive, but it doesn't mean that I have to throw my party that way. And so, no, we don't judge a single thing. Everything is prejudged.
I do enjoy, though, like watching a billionaire with a toothbrush at Pebble Beach, like at 6 a.m. in the morning, trying to get rid of the last speck of dirt. That is like a pet enjoyment of mine. But
you're right about.
Do you think he's enjoying it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel the pressure for him at that point. But
it's funny for so many years now, over a decade, we've been going up to Monterey Car Week, and I usually go up with a friend and business partner, Adam Carolla, and we oftentimes get invited to like the dawn patrol. Do you want to drive a car? Yeah. Do you want to do the dawn patrol? And every time we're like, we're on vacation, man. This is our vacation. Like, I just don't want to do something at 6 a.m. Like,
you do it once. Like the first time you go, it's like, I'm going to dawn patrol. I'm going to get the hat. But it's also cold.
They ask a lot of the media to go because the media usually says stuff like that. And we had a Lamborghini Miura SV.
I remember that year.
We put on the lawn at Pebble Beach. So yes, we got up early. It was foggy. We couldn't see anything. We unloaded the car, fired it up, drove it there. And then we just like, what do we do for the next 4 hours until people start to show up? We're like, do we go take a nap? Like, what do we do?
You know what I do, Matt? I usually leave. I like to go early in the morning. And because the thing about Pebble is that Pebble Beach is, for people who don't know, it's on Sunday. It's at the end of what has been, a 5-day, maybe boondoggle, basically, of catching up with all your friends, seeing these cars. And you're just like, do you even react to cars anymore by Sunday morning? I mean, you're just like done. Usually I get out of there by 9:30. I'm back on the bus to find my car wherever it's been left and headed back to the airport. That's usually.
And we drive, right? So we do the drive because we're in California. Like your event, you're pretty local to it. But you're right. We get to Pebble, 10 in the morning. We hang out till about 1, and then we get on the bus back to our car, and then I'm taking off my suit and putting on my sweatpants so I could drive 5 hours home.
There's a great biker bar that I've found every year where I'm just ripping out of my suit. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care, guys. I'm sorry. I got to get out of this thing immediately. It's like the same thing everywhere.
I'm going to just start asking around some of our friends in the space and just showing up at like the Infinity or the Lincoln Suite,
yeah.
going, "Hey, it's 9 a.m. Can I hang some clothes in your closet? I'll see you guys at 1 on my way out, and I'm just gonna
Right.
change before I leave."
I'm with you. I'm 100%. But you are so tired by Sunday. Like Sunday, 10 or 11 a.m., you're done. You just want to get home, you want to see your family, and go to sleep.
Matt,
So
if you're too tired to drive the Miura, I'll drive the Miura. It's
you
okay.
can buy. Well,
I'm just conscious of like people sitting at home saying, "Hang on a minute, like you get up to get 6 to drive a Miura." That doesn't sound like such a bad gig.
well, the
They've
dog
obviously
patrol
never
you
driven a
don't
Miura.
drive, right? Like you don't have to
Yeah, I
drive.
had
We
to get
showed
up,
the
I had to
car, so
drive
we
the
did
Miura. God, it was
drive
early.
it,
It was a
but
bit cold.
yeah, yeah.
It was only the
But
SV. God, it was the wrong color.
Ooh,
it
it
was
was foggy. The lights didn't work.
Well, we didn't win, so we're bummed on the way home. But so the bridge is it's a
Wait,
1 day
that
event.
goes back to my point, right? So you had like a feeling where even though maybe you walked in thinking you wouldn't win, then you're disappointed leaving. That doesn't make for a great party, right? I mean, nobody wants that. I want people eager to come back and have a great time, you know?
Yes, we were excited to do it because we haven't shown a car. Some people are religious about it and they try to show something all the time.
It's
Yeah.
like elementary school. Everybody gets a trophy. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah, we did not get that. We didn't get to participate. We got the little
The participation
cardboard
thing, that's
placard
it.
that goes in front of the car to prove that it was on display there, but that was it.
This is
The
America.
little
Like,
trophies
everyone's
we
a
give
winner.
out are little glasses of wine, and then you drink them, and everybody
That's
win. That's it.
All right, so the bridge is a 1 day event, right?
The bridge itself is a one-day event. It's September 13th this year. It's from 2 to 7. It's invite only, but we've made the whole affair a 3-day weekend. And so we have, actually, some people are there earlier, but we do have a collectors only gathering at the clubhouse, which is now about 500 people or so. And it's like very difficult for folks to get into. So it's kind of been the one to get. We do a preview of about 60 cars that we're going to show at the same time.
Okay.
That morning is the 24 Hours of Montauk, which is the Valve and Piston Rally. That's really, really fun. That goes on with a lot of our participants. Then Saturday is the bridge. We have 2 events on Sunday. We have Cars and Coffee in town, in downtown Bridgehampton, if you can call that downtown. And we've partnered with Bring a Trailer this year. So I have no doubt that, every year it fills up in 5 minutes. So this year I'm thinking it'll fill up in 5 seconds probably. And then we have, to finish out the weekend, we have brunch with Jean-Georges, the chef, at Topping Rose House, which is right by the Cars and Coffee. And that we also do about 35 cars over there. And it's a Bacchanalian festival. It is just the most wild food festival to just end the weekend.
Okay.
Whoa.
There you go. We're just showing a little preview for
That's
the
our
YouTube,
load in, basically.
Yeah, for the YouTube guys. So the website is thebridgehamptons.com. But like you said, it's invitation only. I'm not quite sure how you get that invitation, but it looks like it's going to be an amazing event. And again, just looking at some of the visuals here, gets you an idea of what this thing looks like. It looks fantastic.
It's a party. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much coming on the show, and good luck with it. There's so many of these things springing up, and the best will survive for sure. And you always look like you have an amazing event.
We'd love to have you both come down. So just reach out if you can make it. Let me know.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
You got
okay,
it.
we're going to wrap things up. Thanks so much, guys. Until next time, keep the air in the spare, in the bag, and the wheel.